just for the panelists, 35% is from Singapore, 12% is from Malaysia, a good number from Philippines, 29% from Philippines. The numbers are constantly changing, so they might not add up to 100. Indonesia is 11%, Vietnam is 4%, Thailand is 3%, Taiwan is 0%, Australia is 0%, other APAC countries is 3%, non-APAC is again 3%. And then the question around the sales maturity of your business, 43% is yet to set up sales process or team. So I think that makes a clear thing on what we can focus on. And 55% have said early stage of sales process, right? So they've set it up, but they're like trying to figure out things and they've not yet really. So these are probably teams that have attained product market fit or some sort of product where they're trying to sell and they're still on the verge of selling. So yeah, the other questions around the episode 1, I think only 16% were here for the episode 1 of the Startup Playbook series, and about 85% were not. So yeah.
Awesome. Hey, I think the chat is disabled.
Oh, yes. The chat has been disabled. Okay. Cool. So I think then, we could just use the Q&A. Yeah, sorry, I didn't know that.
Is it possible to retroactively activate? No.
Nina, is that possible, or is that taken as a conscious decision? Or
because I think on the back end, but yeah, for now they can type their comments or their thoughts on the Q&A portion. Then we can still see everything there.
Sure. Yeah, chat is still good, so it'll be good to have chat. Yeah. Cool. So I think we'll, Nina, would you do an introduction or can I just take it on?
Yeah, I can end the poll now and also show the result to you as you do the intro. Yeah.
Sure. Cool. So that is the final, the poll results, which I just read out. So welcome everyone to the second episode of the Startup Playbook series, presented by E27 in association with Freshworks. I'm Nivas Ravichandran and I lead the startup partnerships at Freshworks. We're a customer engagement platform company. I have with me three panelists coming from three slightly different backgrounds, or I mean, not backgrounds, but I would say the stages at which they are, but they've done different types of setting up of the sales process. So that's what we want to kind of dig in and get as much as we can from them. So Gabriel is the co-founder and CEO with Saleswhale. I'll probably just do a one-liner and then I'll leave it to the panelists so that they could also talk about, we have a format for their introduction. So I think they'll go with that. We have Lynn from TheAsianparent. She takes care of brand solutions, and Sreelesh, who's the general manager for Freshworks Australia. So great. Looks like chat is back. And
awesome.
Yeah. Yes, great. Vinci, can you just move to the next slide, please? Yeah, so I think this was again mentioned. Feel free to put in your thoughts in the chat widget and questions in the Q&A widget. Try to keep the questions on the Q&A widget so that it's just easier for us to scroll through the questions, because it just becomes a little overwhelming for us to read through the chat and identify which are questions and which are comments. And this webinar is being recorded. I think the previous webinar is on YouTube now, so you could go and pick it up over there. Next slide, Vinci. Yeah, so I think this is being done as a benefit for startups as well, where Freshworks for Startups gives out $10,000 in credits on Freshworks products for your startup. If you're looking for a CRM or a marketing automation software or a help desk or a chat widget, feel free to reach out to us. I think someone from our team would be probably even dropping you a note if you had opted in for the credits, and I'll also drop in a link or maybe even my email address for you to reach out. So we're also partnering with a lot of folks, but yeah, next slide. If we don't have the slides, then we can just probably go stop the screen share and we can just jump into questions or into the introductions. Yeah, great. Cool. So Gabriel, I'll start with you. Maybe just give us a quick introduction. 3 things, right? Like one is a one-liner about the company. How is the sales process, right? Like, is it very inbound or outbound? And what's the target person? Are you going after SMB? Are you going after mid-market? Are you going after pure enterprise companies, right? Gabriel.
Nice. So hi everyone, my name is Gabriel. I'm co-founder and CEO of Saleswhale. So Saleswhale is a B2B SaaS, company. So what we do is that we help marketing teams, automate the conversion of their neglected leads. So we work with, anywhere from fast-growing startups to mid-market or even Fortune 500 companies like Randstad Group, Siemens, Sage. So our target market, our sweet spot is really the mid-market, but we also sell to what I call silos in the enterprise, right? And the primary sales methodology actually is neither inbound or outbound, but it's something weird that we coined called postbound, which is kind of like, people who have heard of our brand before, and then we do outbound on them. So it's a combination of brand plus outbound, which, I'm happy to go more into detail later. And yeah, that's kind of a quick, 15 minutes Cliff's note about myself.
Right. Just Gabriel, just for the audience, how do you define mid-market? Because different companies seem to define them slightly in a different way. So how do you define mid-market?
Yeah. So first we define mid-market as 200 employees to 1,000 employees.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Lynn, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Yes. All right. Thank you, Nivas. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Lynn. I'm leading a brand solutions or sales function in TheAsianparent. About TheAsianparent, we are the #1 parenting platform for mom and other member of the family. And then we now producing content. We have an application, and we are reaching a massive million of parents in Southeast Asia. We have 30 million active users monthly right now. Currently, the sales team is working to support hundreds of brands to help them to engage best with our community. The client are ranging from small local products and businesses to mid-market and to global MNC like FMCGs and all the baby products like diapers, big formula brands, baby lotions, and everything that you can imagine, all the household products. And our major sales approach right now is actually like Gabriel is like a mix of, our platform is so well known among the moms, right? And as well as it's so well known about for our client as well. So we do an outbound sales approach, but when, there's a bias when they already know us. So that it's like a mix of the branding plus outbound sales. But we also do some inbound activities as well. Once in a while, like we host a webinar to talk about the insight about our users. And we have some social marketing to give out the best practices on how to engage with these mom audiences. Yeah, very nice to meet everyone in this room, and happy to be here today.
Right. Lynn, because I think one of the things you mentioned is the solution of the selling is the advertising, right? I'm guessing.
Yes, majorly media and advertising, but we also have other kind of service such as like market research, or we have like a focus group, and we have a research arm and the media arm and creative arms as well. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Cool. Sreelesh, I think I've heard it enough, but Freshworks and what you take care of at the Freshworks Australia team. And,
It's great with Freshworks that we get to introduce Freshworks twice. Anyway. So happy to be here. I want to so badly look at the first episode. So I'm Sreelesh. I go with Sree here in Australia. It's just so much easier for everyone to say Sree. I lead the operations for the company here in Australia and New Zealand. Let's get back to the three questions, right? So one line about the company. So that is, we provide customer engagement software for businesses to make their customers be with them for life, right? So something that's very special to us here in Australia is that we have our very first customer here as Atwell College, who's in Australia. Globally, they were our first customer and they still continue to do business with us. So we hope that we using our own solutions will help keep Atwell College for life for us too. So overall, customer engagement software, CRM, marketing automation, help desk ticketing, customer service software, and that's all of that. You have the $10,000 of credits worth. So for any startup out there, please do reach out and grab. So here in Australia, New Zealand, my team here, we're a 25-member team and we focus on the mid-market and enterprise. So Nivas, yes, for the mid-market, we say it's anything that's about 250 employees to 1,000, very similar to what Gabe just said, and 1,000 above enterprise. In terms of our outbound and inbound split, we're also seeing a lot of partners help us. So we'd like to call that, a mini outbound and inbound, right? So we reach out to partners and they also bring stuff inbound. So when we begun, most of our opportunities were outbound, but we've slowly started putting the brand out there in this new region. And we're slowly seeing the mix between, I could say comfortable 40%, which is inbound. So people are knowing about us and coming to us, asking us questions. But otherwise, it's a lot of field marketing and outbound selling, lead generation, events, webinars, the usual. And that's the split today.
Okay. Cool. So I think I'll start off for a question with Gabriel, because you brought in a term called postbound, right? You said Saleswhale sells to mid-market companies, and you used this. You mentioned for people who've heard of or who've known the brand. How are you doing that, Gabriel? And first of all, how did you even decide on something like this, right? Like whether should you do inbound or should you do outbound, or even how did you go about that, Gabe? Hey, you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry,
yeah,
I'm on
again
mute.
a Zoom cliche. Yeah.
Before I answer your question, right, I'm very cognizant that most people in this audience, they're just starting out on their journey to build their sales process, right? So I think I'll answer in two ways, right? First, where we are right now, why we came to this decision, and second, how we got started, right?
Right.
So in terms of postbound, the reason why we decided on this strategy is because at the end of the day, we realized that, most mid-market and enterprise companies, right? The purchase decision for a product like Saleswhale is not overnight, right? You have to nurture them. They have to trust your brand. They have to trust, understand what you're doing. So it takes nurturing. So to that end, we do a lot of top of the funnel events. So for those of you in the audience, you may see like Saleswhale, we do webinars similar to this, right? Where we call them Saleswhale masterclasses. We generate thousands of leads per masterclass. We put them through a nurture sequence, right? We try to brainwash them on our philosophy, right? And then, from time to time, we surface hand raisers and we hand them over to the sales team. So that has been a relatively smooth process, right? But here's the problem, right? We have been in market for the last 2 to 3 years, right? And for those of you who are starting out, you don't start off like this, right? It takes time, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months to build a brand, right? To get content out there, right? So you need to kind of fuel your sales process, your sales team in the short run, right? And the way we started off and the way we got to our first $1 million in revenue was pure outbound. So literally just, how it started, me, myself, sitting in a room, scraping email addresses of decision makers, I'm in my underwear, eating Big Mac, right? And then just trying different permutations, right? Of co-emailing, right? Different messaging to these decision makers to try to see what resonates, right? And then getting meetings from there, closing the first few deals, and then scaling it out to hire my first 2 SDRs. So these are junior sales reps, fresh out of college. You teach them your methodology. They help you. They sit in their underwear in the living room, sending cold emails to people, booking meetings on your behalf. And that's kind of how we got started. I hope that answers the question.
Yes. So just probably, and at what point did you come to that phase of hiring those 2 first SDRs? And what did you probably ask them to do? I wouldn't use the word outsource, but more like taking care of what was given to them, Gabriel?
So we hired our first SDR, I think around 6 months in. So I kind of had the repeatable process where, I knew exactly who to reach out to, who resonated with the message, what messaging to use on which personas, what's the approach. So so to your second question is that, what do you then teach them? Basically is your entire methodology, right? So get them to schedule you for a day, and then, you just do it in front of them and get them to ask questions. So it's kind of like by osmosis. And then over time, you will start to kind of like document the process and, continue to fine-tune and iterate with them.
And when you said attain a repeatable process, at what stage, like how many customers, or just trying to understand what was your stage at which you decided to hire that SDR?
So I think around then we had like around 20 to 30 early customers. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Cool. Lynn, so I think one of the things with, because you're handling different regional markets, right? What should startups look at or remember, or even prepare, right? When preparing for, especially given that you might even have language markets, how does the team prepare for that? Like while setting up the team or setting up the sales process, how does that work, Lynn?
Right. So the thing that is working here is that we would have like the regional team who also do like a regional sales from the headquarters to the each of the local market. And also we have, at the same time, we have a local sales person who will work very closely with the local customer on the ground. So what we do to ensure our regional team do is that like I think is a very focusing on the pre-approaching. Like for example, if you normally, right, when you go to sell in your local market, you'll be only research about their businesses, their market, their competitors, and what can be some of their objectives, right? So you kind of expecting the conversation before approaching the client. But for the cross-border selling, I think the further step that I suggest to my team to do is also to find out the lay of the land or the marketing context in the particular geo, to familiarize themselves, right, with the not only the marketing context, but also the social, cultural context before the meeting. Like for example, like before meeting the client, you should learn about like what are their business situation, like the COVID situation. Do they have a politics things going on, or economics thing, you know, or any key social trends and happenings. So when you go to meet them, right, this would help you to build a better conversation, and also you can expect the potential concerns, or you can expect the potential objections, right, that you can prepare to answer those objections from them as well. So these are the things that it's like an extra step in the sales process that the regional person would need to take.
Right. And just probably asking the same question to Sreelesh in a slightly different way, because Sreelesh, one of the things that you did was set up the Australia market from scratch, right? So how does that I think entering a new market is generally a little tricky, because there is maybe when there is very little presence. You're on mute, Sreelesh, so just giving you a heads up on that. Yeah. And how did you, like, where did you start, or how did you prepare? Like, for example, Lynn was talking about understanding the lay of the land, right? How did that look for something like your setting up the sales process, Sreelesh?
Yeah, so naturally, you look at your existing customer base. So what Gabe and Lynn's also alluding to is really a repeatable process, right? So looking at our existing customer base and seeing what kind of customers they are, and how long did it take for them to actually become customers from the beginning of the sales process, right? So you look at things like that, and you also look at where we did not win, right? So very important when you're starting in a new market. You also need to know why you did not win. And with the power of hindsight, you're asking me this 5 years down the lane, right? So with the power of hindsight, I can tell you, I wished we focused more on why we lost deals back in the day when you're setting up in a new region, right? So things like a local data center, right? Things like a local currency payment options, right? Things like the same language, the app should provide the same language that the user is on automatically, right? The website being that language, etc., right? So all of that, we first need to understand how the customers came in, why we lost, and then have we set up enough muscle to prevent more such losses. And then only can we start investing in what Gabe said, 2 SDRs, 3 SDRs, right? So very much for me, it was about spraying and praying. So suddenly seeing, oh, this is the Harvey Norman who's a customer of ours. We're seeing their ad in the newspapers and hearing the radio jingles on it. And so I go meet Harvey Norman, right? So back then, we never had an account management team. We never had a hunter team, right? So it's about making money, right? So I would say today, that's an account management function where we're going to an existing customer, understanding their needs and building business from there, right? So I suppose my top two things, as we look at the process, we really need to look at how we're winning and also why we're losing, to ensure that the process, and one is to ensure that investments and setup is there to prevent losses as we build on a process, as we build on further investments in any region.
Right. And you also mentioned a very interesting point around how long it took to win a customer, right? Is that how important was that for Australia? Because maybe the sales cycle for a particular region could have been different. Lynn, or I think Lynn is also nodding. So, Sreelesh, how was that for Australia? Like, did you see some difference, or how did you adapt to it? Or even from the fact that, you can answer that, and I have a follow-up question on that. So,
Okay, yeah. So obviously, because I mentioned earlier on, right? So when we started out, we were doing a lot of outbound, right?
right.
What made us monies was all of those inbound opportunities. It could be a prospect who's comparing us to two other software vendors out there, and they've reached out over our contact us page saying, hey, I'd love to hear from you guys, right? So our first big opportunity really came from such an exercise, right? So you need to continuously build the outbound muscle while also looking at the bread and butter, which is whatever's coming inbound, right? So when we began here in Australia, there was really inbound which was giving us the monies, and certainly that was not enough, right? So when you look back, we had close to, this is 6 years ago, but I'm glad I remember, close to 60 to 70 paying customers, and under $1 million here in Australia, New Zealand, right? So that 60, so Gabe's number was, or Lynn's number was 20, Gabe's number was 20-30, right? So my number was 60 to 70, right? So and of that, when we looked at the spread, it was across, but more retail, education, and certainly there was nothing along the lines of government, right? Banking and finance, right? So we did more of outbound on these working industries because we had a name. Hey, there's Harvey Norman who's using us. Can we speak to you in how we can help you guys as well, right? So we looked at what closed sooner. We looked at which verticals had marquee customers, and focused our outbound on areas where we knew we've won. And the inbound, whenever that come, we'd act on it like priority, because that was what was giving us monies. And finally, they're the ones that unlock new verticals for us, right? Because what's working right now is retail, let's assume retail education, but inbound would be across the spread. Nobody limits, your inbound marketing doesn't limit any verticals, right? Everyone comes in, right? So but we focus on the inbound just to find a great marquee customer, and then go outbound on that particular vertical.
Right. And I think one of the follow-up questions I had was around when, especially Australia, given the population and the density of people, does the mid-market and the enterprise definition always hold true, right? Like when you say 200 to 1,000 employees or 1,000 to 1,000 and above, maybe the account book becomes extremely smaller, right? For a particular, let's say, any of these founders who are trying to set up a sales process, and suddenly when they say, hey, okay, let's go after these, like for example, even Singapore, for that matter, how many 1,000+ companies would you be able to find who are within Singapore, right? Like let's say that might be a little tricky for them. So how did that? I mean, did you take up that conversation, or how did you handle that relation?
Very touchy subject, especially for global companies, So if I had raised a LinkedIn post, I'm just assuming, hey, any ANZ leaders out there who are finding it challenging, getting either policies in place for ANZ or budgets in place for ANZ, I'd have a lot of people come in, and I'm pretty sure, right? But so this is the thing. Well, any market is particular, is very specific, right? You got to study so much into it. So what we did is what I did, is we didn't hire big, right? So
Okay,
to
right.
ensure that we're able to play the field well, we just hired two sales BD individuals, and we did also collaborate with the Chennai team who is handling the inbound, right? So what I'd think, what I'd imagine is, yes, every region needs to be worked differently. You need to have your business plan in order. You need to always keep the management abreast of where we're winning, where we're losing. So as an example, Nivas, right? So without the local data center, we lost close to $700,000, right?
Wow.
And we had deals we had deals on that, right? So because of tracking all of that and continuously banging the door, hey, Nishant, hey, Girish, this is it. We launched the data center in 2018, which is actually the same year Salesforce launched their latest center, in Australia, New Zealand. So you can imagine, we just there for 2 years. You have other organizations who've been there for a decade and over, and we launched the data center in the very same year. So as long as you have a business plan, you're tracking it like a hawk, you're collaborating with your senior management, where you're winning, where you're losing. I think that's the key to, getting what you want to be done specifically for your region.
Right. So I'm going to take like 2 to 3 questions from the audience so that we're able to clear out some of them and answer them. There's a question from Arun. Gabriel, I'm going to address it to you. As a startup, which lead generation process works best? Cold emails, cold calls, etc. Right.
Yeah, so Arun, feel free to post in the chat more context, like which stage are you at right now. But assuming that you're early stage startup, like I said, honestly, don't complicate things, right? Just do cold emailing. Like I see so many people, they try to complicate their process, they're trying to do all sorts of fancy stuff. The truth is, just pick up the phone / open your email, look for decision makers on LinkedIn, right? And send them a really thoughtful, well-crafted cold email. And then manually, like don't even buy those fancy, emailing tools, right? Just manually send 50 to 100 emails a day. That's it, right? And when you get like rejections, you get people who are unresponsive, right? And you're gonna feel really shitty about it, but that's good because you take that rejection, right? That no, and then you continue to fine tune your message and your approach until you find something that works.
And when do you know it's not working, Gabriel? I mean, how much have you tried? I mean, probably should you try is a very generic question, but how much did you try, Gabriel?
I tried a lot.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if it's a question of whether it's not working, because I think personally I may be biased, but I think that cold emails always work.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And if it's not working, chances are it has to do with your positioning. Right. It has to do with your segmentation, who you're going after. It has to do with your value proposition. And you may also need to come to the realization that as a startup founder, if you can't even get your first few customers, right, like from cold email / warm referral / cold calls, then this may sound really brutal, but then is this a viable business? Right. So that's something to think about.
Right.
Yeah,
Sreelesh, do you want? Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, I just want to have a question on that. Right? Are you able to share like what are the percentage of response rate from your experience? I'm really curious because I did a lot of cold email and cold LinkedIn inbox too.
Yeah, it's brutal. So my stats, if I send 100 emails and I get 1 meeting out of it, I would say that it's a decent success. Yeah. If you get 2 to 3 meetings from it, it's really great, right? So I think on average, you'll get like 7 to 9% response rates. Most of those responses would be, I'm sorry, not the right time. I'm not interested, bug off, right? And yeah, so out of that 7 to 9%, then maybe 1 or 2 will say, okay, let's have a meeting.
Right. Lynn, do you have some thoughts around what has worked for the Asian parent, especially?
For the mode of the communication to get leads, you mean?
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Is it cold email, cold call, something?
Right.
Maybe
it
even
depends
LinkedIn
on the
outreach.
geo though. Like when I observe, right, there's a difference in behavior of the user or the client in each market. Like email may works a lot in the developed market, like Australia, New Zealand, or Singapore or Malaysia, that more familiar with email, right? But for a market like Thailand, like Indonesia or Philippines, maybe people do not actually open an email and it goes straight to the bin, right? So I thought like a mix of local type of inbound thing, like SMS works really well in those, how to say, the market like Thailand and Indonesia. So you will need to find out and optimize, right, your media or your medium to communicate, and also the message itself. And to add on Grab, the thing that I noticed is not about the numbers of the emails that we sent, or not only about the messaging that we sent, but also on the person, on the personal profile itself too. Sometimes when you inbox person, right, but you don't actually optimize your profile page of your company or of yourself, it's actually affected a lot in terms of not conversion but response rate, because people will look at you first before they respond, and people will look into your company LinkedIn profile to decide whether they want to respond. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more, and I think it's a salient point, right? That you when you do cold emails, right, you have to make sure that your website looks legit, because you think of the buyer's journey, right? People will not just reply a cold email and say, yeah, let's jump on a call.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Right? Yeah. So they will go to your website first. They'll check it out. Okay, this looks interesting. And then they will come back and they reply you. So I couldn't agree more with Lynn on this.
Right. And in fact, even when you're sending a LinkedIn outreach, right, it's important for you to have your LinkedIn profile properly set up. A lot of the people like send me a great custom message and I go check out the LinkedIn profile. I'll be like, dude, who are you? Right. Like, I mean, because especially when they're not a founder, they're just a salesperson. It's good to probably have a good sales profile on LinkedIn. So I'm going to combine one of there's a question from Rudy Wang. I'm going to combine one of those questions for Gabriel. So I had a question as well on something like that. She says, of the following, what is the most important from a high velocity, hypercharging sales velocity team? So probably I'll just rephrase it into a slightly better way. What is that one methodology or process that worked really well? And what is that one thing? I think I'm going to ask that to all the three panelists here. What is that one thing that you think, okay, you know what, it never worked, never go there, right? Gabriel, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think something that's really worked very well for us is the combination of brand and bottom of the funnel content, right? So I'll go more into detail later, but something that we did really well in the early days was to create this thing called a manifesto. And basically this manifesto is like a content piece that we will use to kind of like drum up interest, when we send our cold emails, and then kind of like escalate them down the path where people will raise their hands to take a demo with us, right? So I'll say bottom of the funnel content, investing in brand, definitely one of the, most pivotal things that we have done to hypercharge sales velocities. Biggest waste of time, paid ads. Super tempting, super tempting, right? Like you spend $10,000 on a paid ad on LinkedIn, right? You click on the lead generation form, so sexy, request for a demo, and then you see a couple of people streaming. And then at the end of the day, when you look at your ROI, it's like, oh my God, like I'm spending a bunch of this money and like I'm barely converting anyone, right? So you guys may beg to differ. I don't know. I'd love to hear from Lynn, because I know you guys are more like, brand performance play, but for B2B SaaS in the early days as a startup without the brand, oh my God, so easy to sink so much money into this. And
Right. So just one question on that, Gabriel. You mentioned bottom of the funnel content, right? Like what is that, maybe something that worked really well? Maybe just give us like a title, or what is that worked?
So two things. Number one is case studies. So I know it sounds boring, but case studies specifically, not like, oh, customer came to use our product and then, they had these big results and happily ever after. No, a case study that highlights very specifically a use case, like exactly very technically how they did it, right? Step by step, that led them to the promised land. So technical case studies like this, very, very, very important. And the second thing is the manifesto that I talked about earlier, right? Like, for those of you who are startup founders, you started your startup for a reason, right? You had this burning problem that you want to solve, right? For those of you who are, working for startups, right? Get your startup founders to write a manifesto, a 6-pager, why they chose to solve this problem that they were solving, what's broken in the world, right? And then pass it to your content person, marketing person to kind of like spruce it up, and then use this manifesto to open doors for yourself when you are, doing cold emailing, cold LinkedIn outreaches.
Right. Sri, do you want to add something? Or?
Yeah, so just listening to Gab, right? So the cold email is the best, right? So one thing I think what worked very well for us is in the cold email, we ensure that we're providing value that they can actually, even without getting back, they can use something from that email, right? So one 100%. Thing we used to use, right? So we're a CX platform, right? So if there's a form on a website, right, and you're not getting a reply from hitting the submit button on a form on the website, there's something wrong, right? So as a user, when you're hitting submit on a form, you expect an acknowledgement, right? So the guys used to go to a form on a website, do their thing, submit, and if they did not get a reply, hey, dear customer, I'm a big fan. I tried reaching out to your company, hit submit, did not get anything in return. Not sure if my request is lost somewhere, but hey, I work for Freshworks. We help similar businesses like yours do the same thing. Can you connect me with someone whom I can, discuss this with, right? So that's the initial outreach where this person's already seeing value, right? Oh man, I got to fix that, right? And then the follow-up should again still provide value. Hey, not sure if you saw that email, but I tried this other piece right here, and I thought this was the person that I should be reaching out to. Reach them also. Now this guy is getting, oh wow, this guy is reaching more people out, in my company with the same problem. Let me reach out, let me talk to this person and see if I can solve it, right? So every single, not just the cold email, but even the reply, the follow-up to that cold email has value that this person, even just subconsciously, they're going to find, hey, I the next time I get an email from this person, there's going to be some value. Let me check them out, right? And finally, you have a conversation from there. So that's being maybe the cold email, when you try and do it that way, it takes a little more time. But even in a in a small market, you can't just be spraying through. So
100%.
Yeah.
it worked for us early days.
I think I remember reading somewhere saying, you know what, it's not that cold emails don't work, it's poorly customized cold emails that don't work.
Please do not add more shitty cold emails to
Right, totally. So Lynn, I think I'm going to combine one of the questions that came from the audience as well as something from me. How does the sales cycle for media advertisers look like? And also the second is, I think for both Sreelesh and Gabriel, they're running a recurring business, right? Like for example, but how does that work? And it's more difficult to kind of get recurring, revenue from the same advertisers. So how does that work, Lynn, in a media industry?
Right. Okay. So about the sales cycle, right? As I mentioned earlier, that our sales team is actually working with a various type of clients accounts. So we have like a local brands, which is SME, SMB, and also mid-market brands and global MNCs, right? And of these type of clients, we also have multiple verticals. So we would have like a direct relevant vertical, which is the mom and baby products. And we'll have other verticals that, like indirectly related, like for example, banking, like healthcare or finance, or we have automobile, telecoms, and all that. So the nature of the sales cycle will be different based on both factors. So whether they are like an SME or whether they are a global MNC, right? Normally, global MNC will take a much longer process and much longer sales cycle, as everyone may know. But also you will need to look into the vertical itself, right? Whether it's a very highly relevant, and if so, like your sales cycle, I mean like my sales cycle would be in like the 4 quadrants. So like highly relevant and big company, or high relevant but smaller company, or low relevancy. So it depends on the relevancies and the verticals they are. So normally the highest, the longest can be up to like 6 months, or like up to like a year, even for like a global company, right? Or the shortest can be in 1 week. So it's really vast. And that's, yeah. And in order to recur this account, right, also this type of client or persona of the clients also need different treatments in terms of making them recurring. Right? So our current strategy is when we work with the core major accounts, like the big MNCs that focus on the mom and baby segment, we will try to not building like a one-time off sales, but we'll want to be a partner, like a real long-term business partner with them. So we're not treating ourselves as like a media company where we'll just go to produce some contents or do some advertising for their campaigns, but instead we are building ourselves to be as one of the department of their company. We want to position ourselves that way and keep on, listening and engaging with them on a daily basis. And we have a dedicated person to specifically take care of this account. So it's a long-term partnership. And
More like,
we try to make the deal as longest term deal as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're saying so more like the Asian parent acts as an extended arm for the extended wing for this thing. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Sri, I want to have I have just two questions before we move on to more further questions. Maybe one question I found very interesting. I thought I'll come to the panelists a little later, but I thought I'll let you think about it. Can you share a sales trick or approach that just surprised us, right? Like something that you probably did and it just worked in your favor without even you realizing, oh my God, this works so well, right? Like that's a question that I'll come to later. But Sreelesh, maybe what are some metrics that you look at regularly, Sreelesh?
Yeah, I think it's pipeline being built, right?
Okay.
So you need a certain X times of your revenue goal as pipeline, right?
Okay.
And then it's also your closure rates. If there is X in pipeline, every other quarter, are we closing a percentage of that? Are we regular that closure percentage increasing, decreasing? Because then you'd have to decide how much more or less pipeline you can be comfortable with. And I suppose at the end of all of that, it's I also look at churning customers. So are they happy, right? So our CSAT scores across the boards, right? So it's not just about mid market, across the board, anything Australia, New Zealand, because word gets around. You got
right. Oh yes.
Every segment of every market, every vertical is happy. So I also invest efforts into looking at all the whole customer, what's going out there, in review sites. Nivas, that's why sometimes I come to you, hey Nivas, could you please get us either check out that review, is that a really unhappy review? If it's so, let's see how we can better it, or get us some more happy reviews on the marketplaces, right? So
yeah,
something that I'm also on top of, maybe just the old marketer in me.
Right. Sri, do you want to answer the question around something that surprised you from a sales process or like an approach?
Yeah. So I think that this is my own experience. Obviously, I took around my laptop, selling in the first 2 years, and this has been the biggest eye opener for me. So with polite persistence, right? You're either the email or the phone call, whatever it is, you're politely persisting your way through, right? What happened was I tried calling this gentleman, and I did get hey, I'm busy, right? I get the you disconnect the call and you get a text.
And then right.
So here's me typing back a reply, right, saying, hey, sincere apologies, maybe I should catch you again 5 p.m. Is that fine, right? And we got a text relationship going on. Right. So appreciate you trying to call again. Sure, let's do it. Right. And that's something that many of us miss, So the texting relationship that you get, it was really serendipity, because he was really disconnecting my call, and I was really being apologetic about, calling him off hours, right, and asking him when we can catch up again, and there it began, right? So I'm all for these old traditional, whether it's a cold email or a cold call. As long as you do it well, you do it with the care angle always, you'll get a reply. It will progress.
Right. I think I remember hearing this from someone saying, if you're able to just, politely pursue them, right? You're actually guilt tripping them a little, right? They're like, you know what? This guy has been so persistent and so polite that why am I not responding to him or her, right? So I think, that makes a lot of sense. Gabe, do you want to talk about the metrics as well as maybe something that's like surprised you on what worked?
I can talk about the surprise one first. I have so many.
Okay.
So I can.
Okay.
As soon as we were trying weird shit, right? So, so something we used to do pre-COVID, please do not do it now, is we experimented with sending handwritten notes, a $10 Starbucks gift card and a chocolate to decision makers we're trying to reach, right? And we're just like, just send it to their office. And after we send that, we drop them an email saying, hey, I sent you a gift. I don't know if you recall. Do you know what's the demo book percentage from that? 37%.
Wow.
Out of every handwritten note that we sent, 37% turned into demos, and I think we closed quite a few of them. So that was nominal. Like, and I think this kind of triggers the kind of law of reciprocity that, humans, as humans we have. I mean, obviously, you do not want to be sending physical stuff to people now during COVID.
Yeah, and I think if the people are not in office, like maybe in Singapore they are, but in a lot of other
so this is the interesting thing. So how did we pivot this experiment after COVID? So one thing we did after that, and this was also a bit tricky, is that we reached out to decision makers on LinkedIn. And I gave my salespeople access to my LinkedIn account, so they'll be kind of messaging them as a CEO, like, I would love to buy you lunch, or I love to buy you dinner. And then the message is like, hey, times are tough, blah, blah, blah. I would love to just buy you lunch, no obligations, right? Like, here's a $50, so in the US, it's like DoorDash, gift card. In Singapore, it's like a $50 GrabFood voucher. No obligations, just give me your email ID, I will buy you lunch. And then, by the way, if you're okay, do you want to take a demo with us? And we drove demos from, I think we drove like 17 demos from this crazy experiment, right? Wow. And we closed a bunch of them as well. So initially my finance manager was like, oh my God, like you guys are going to lose so much money doing this. Right. Yeah, so there's some crazy stuff that we did. In terms of matrix, standard stuff, right? Like I wouldn't overcomplicate it, right? Very standard stuff, your lead velocity rate, how many leads are you generating a month, your stage 2 pipeline, opportunity to close ratios. So you want to kind of instrument everyone on this, but I'll probably take a more contrarian approach. I think that in the early days in your sales process, as good at, as fantastic it is to be data-driven and quantitatively driven, you want to kind of be qualitative as well. So to that end, we use this tool called Gong to record sales calls. And what I do is that I set up triggers. So basically this Gong would record the sales calls. They would look out for, specific keywords. So I put in competitor keywords. I'll put in stuff like marketing automation, because a question that comes out often is, how is Saleswhale different from marketing automation? And then when a keyword, pops up, I go and listen to the Gong call so that I can see how my sales reps are handling these objections.
Makes a lot of sense. Lynn, do you want to quickly talk about the metrics and maybe something that worked in your favor? And we'll just jump into questions. We have 10 more minutes, so we'll dive more into questions.
Yeah, same as C and Gab were don't overcomplicating. So like the metric we're looking is like at the top line on a top funnel, right? Like number of sales activities, whether we have enough pipelines, and the conversion from the cold leads to the actual presentation done. And the mid-funnel, we're looking into the total number of pitches and proposals sent and the closing rates. And those are the metrics we are measuring on a daily, weekly basis. And for the story, I grab story, make my story brand. So I'm not saying like I have like that such a how to say surprising experience, but what I noticed from all the activity sale efforts that we did, right? Anything that actually benefits to the client or anything that benefits them works well. For example, if we offer them like a free help or a free consultation with no obligation, not that, but we need to be quite honest with the client also, right? Not like me saying like we don't we offer this for free, but ended up like we turn this conversation into a pitching, right? So we need to be very frank with them also, and that works very well. Like last time we offered like a webinar at the spot during a peak of COVID, right? About how to handle with babies and how the moms actually handling with their babies at home during COVID and how they handle the stress within the family. Some kind of like very useful and prompted insight, right? And we got like a huge responses from that webinar, and 50% turned into our potential leads.
Great.
So they appoint the call with us.
Interesting. So I'm going to quickly jump into some of the questions. The number of questions are just pouring in, so I'm just trying to pick out some of the good ones. Gabe, I think there was one question for you around how flexible are you with your customers in terms of terms, discounts, offering?
Oh, I just answered that in the Q&A. So the short,
okay.
short answer is that extremely flexible. So in the early days, do whatever it takes to close the deal. So we offered a customer, a $3,400 a month plan for $500 a month just to close them. And so what, right? In the early days, you just need the references, the logos, just do whatever it takes.
Do you have the things like a free trial?
In the early days, we did paid pilots instead. The reason why I don't believe in free trials, okay, not I don't believe, but like it's a false signal, right? Because it's very easy to do something free. Whereas, at least even if someone pays you $1, right, it validates what you're trying to build.
Right. I like what Ahrefs does. They do a 7-day trial for $7, right? That gives them the intention saying, okay, people be willing to pay. Sri, I'm going to show this question at you. What are your recommendations for building lists for cold emailing? Have you done that? Or how did you go about it? If they were to, at least building an account book or building a list of cold emails?
Yeah. So there's always a master list that you have, right? So you have this target audience and all these, whether it's a CXO or a VP or a manager profile, you have a target list. And then there should always be other mini lists that you're building, right? So one could be a list which is about maybe news that's there, in the media about changes in management, right? Usually when people change, they want to do new things, right? Or maybe there's announcements by the company about certain initiatives, or even maybe there's, poor reviews that are happening. Basically, look at things that your product or your company can help with, right? And when these mini lists start populating and you find a match, across many lists, you start picking up on those, right? And doing these outbound emails on those lists which have people in common, right? So you could hear company X being announcing this, and then there's a problem that you can solve through your solutions. It's there in the news. And then there's someone who's also making moves in terms of hiring. You bring them together and you say, this is very likely, to be an account that you can reach out to and make some conversations going. And you build, your list that way. And there are many ways of doing those lists. It could be via review sites. It could be via Twitter. There's always so many people talking about so many problems. And they could be, LinkedIn notifications, Sales Navigator notifications of news about companies. So those mini lists are crucial to find the common and the most likely conversation starters that you can get going.
Right. So one of the very interesting things is you mentioned is because there's always a very need, or there's a intent over there, right? Like when you're building these lists and not just buy out like a general list or something of that sort. That's something I really liked. Gabe, so when you started out, right, like how did you decide who's the decision maker? Or because especially yours is a little bit in the marketing automation / sales, right? Like it's stuck in the middle somewhere. And who do you define as the owner for something of this sort? And how did you go about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just spray and pray. So in the early days, we thought that we are selling to salespeople, but in the end, like I said, right, as you're kind of like, iterating, you realize that your messaging was resonating more with demand generation and marketing people. So we kind of pivoted the business positioning there as well. To touch a bit on the list building, something more tactical, check out this thing called tryprospect.com and lucia.com to get Chrome extensions to build lists. And if you guys are not already using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you should be getting onto it. Like it's a good investment. Just buy it already. Yeah. And then, just go and build your list manually from there. And try not to purchase lists in bulk because I don't think that's thoughtful, right? Just manually go and build your list on LinkedIn using one of these Chrome extensions.
Yeah, I think there are enough businesses who've kind of burned their fingers by trying to buy lists.
Yeah, terrible.
So in fact, I'm going to probably sum up some of these things, right? Like where if you notice, none of them actually spoke about just one large approach or probably just going after like spending lot on ads or things like that, right? Like everyone spoke about very curated processes that they've built over periods of time. And I think they're not easily scalable, right? Because if it was, then I think everyone is probably doing it and it's probably not a very effective method. I think what Sreelesh, Gabe, as well as Lynn have done is they've kind of identified what is really like working even in a small scale, right? And probably then try replicating it across maybe verticals, across regions, across whatever, right? I think this has been a phenomenal conversation. I think we just have 3 more minutes. Vinci, do you want to bring the slides up? I think we do have some more questions. maybe I can take one last question. I think Andrew has a question around the sales process, right? Gabe, I don't know if Gabe or either Lynn or Sri want to answer it around. It's very deep and complex. Do you have like a sales model or like a framework of how to set up a sales model? Sri, do you want to probably kick it off?
There's lots, right? MedPick and all of that. But really, if you yourself are doing the sales, I think that you as a founder, as a VP of sales, you need to build your playbook, right? So I think one of the biggest failures I've probably gone through is not creating nor updating the playbook with the times changing, right? So and with things happening very quickly in the company, it's hard to be on top of things, right? So what has worked for you, please document. And it's the biggest, I think I've got a lot of respect for people who've done that today at Freshworks. So what is working, please document so that other people can learn and allow even further modifications. Let them take that up, operate on it, make better, again document, right? So that's just my take on sales process, really being able to document and giving the freedom for others to replicate and make better.
Nice. I couldn't agree with Sreelesh more. Please document your stuff. Yeah. So I posted something in the chat that's more tactical. Check out this thing called foundingsales.com, right? It's this early stage go-to-market handbook, really tactical. Go and check it out. And then, if you can use it as a starting point, it'd be great.
Right. Lynn, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, not yet.
Okay, okay, cool. Yeah. So I think this we'll bring it to a wrap. Where thank you so much, Gabriel. Thank you so much, Sreelesh. Thank you so much, Lynn. And yes, Freshworks for Startups is offering $10,000 in credits for startups for you to try out your like let's say CRM or help desk and set it up for your sales business. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sreelesh. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you, Lynn. This was phenomenal. I really love this conversation. I think we're going to have it on YouTube, and feel free to reach out to us. I think LinkedIn would be a great way for us to be connected. I think maybe if we can all just drop in our LinkedIn titles or names, right? Like, I mean, that'll just be so. Feel free to connect with us on Navas Ravichandran at LinkedIn. And we also have another very dedicated one around enterprise sales happening 17th March. We might probably push it by a week or two, but I think feel free to reach out to the E27 team to kind of get in touch and probably get more information. And I think I'll pass it on to Nina. Nina?
Yeah, thank you, Nivas. Thank you, everyone who joined us today, and we will be reaching out to you for more information on the next, the next episode, and we'll be sharing more info. The answers that we were not able to answer today, Nivas, will be sharing the answers via email with them.
Sure. And hope you guys found it helpful. If you did, probably put a thumbs up or just reply in the chat. I think the chat is open for everyone. I'm hoping. So feel free to just. So that we also know if this was helpful. I'm hoping, I think 90% of you have stayed back all the way till the end. So I'm hoping it was helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have a survey, which is going to pop up after they leave as soon as it ends. So it's helpful for us also if they let us know what they think about the session.
Sure. Sreelesh, do you just want to add some quick closing words and then we'll wrap up?
Oh, no, it's amazing you're doing this, Nivas. Please keep doing it. Let's help people like how we were helped 10 years ago. So we were at Freshworks. We were helped by Microsoft BizSpark, isn't it? So we got our initial big leap of dollars, right? Got us all on Macs. We got all Macs from that, right? So please, team. I mean, whoever is attending, thank you for attending. I hope you find value. And please feel free to reach out to any one of us. We're most happy to help and engage. Thank you.
Yeah. Gabe?
Yeah, nothing for me. I don't hold everyone back from their lunch.
Awesome. Yeah, right. Lynn, thank you so much, Lynn, for joining us. So yeah, we're also doing a VC Connect in the next episode where we're trying to just collect enough interest for the VCs as well. So we're going to set up some meetings between startups as well as VCs. We're connected with a lot of investors and accelerators. So we're trying to do that facilitation as well from our side, just as a pay it forward for people who are trying to raise funds. So feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn and we'll get that set up. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. This was great.
Thank you.
Yep.